What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, this is TWA Motorsports, and today, well, just like the title says, guys, we are going to attempt, well, we're gonna try anyway. We're gonna try to get the fuel pump out of this thing. So let me tell you what's been going on with it ever since we bought it, right? It has had a low fuel pressure gauge. So you have no idea how much gas is in this thing. And guys, we replaced the sending unit, or not the sending unit, but the cluster with the newer cluster. We knew that wasn't it. I didn't figure that was it anyway. It's the sending unit in the tank. Well, guys, you could take that apart and replace just the sending unit, but the fact that this thing has 200,000 miles on it, to me, I say, that looks like it's popping out. I think we should replace the pump. It's got 200,000 miles on it. As far as I know, it's got the stock pump in it. So today, we're going to attempt to get the bed off, because in my opinion, that is the easiest way to replace the pump. Now, we're really close back here. As you can see, the bed is very, very close, but I still think I'm going to attempt to use my cherry picker to lift from these guys. So the mounts, well, you can see the bungee cord in that one. There's one in all four corners, but the very first thing I'm going to do before I do that is I'm gonna get the tailgate off, just to give us a little less weight that we're lifting on. And then we're gonna slide underneath. I'm gonna show you what bolts we need to unbolt and a couple things that we need to undo, because I'd like to take the taillights with it. That way I'm not having to take them out. I'm just gonna unplug everything, cut the zip ties that are ran to my airlines because they are tied to the bed. But I'll show you guys that here in just a minute when we slide under. But the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to get this tailgate off of here, which, guys, if you've never done this, if you unclip it here and the other side, you can slide it out of place. You kind of got to lift it up a little bit, but then it kind of just slides out of place. We'll get it out of the way first. Like I said, it's just additional weight that, in my opinion, we don't need to be lifting on. So we'll get that done, and then we'll slide under this thing. Actually, before we get under it, I've got the tailgate off, as you can see, but we're going to take these T30s out that hold this guy. And then besides the T30, you can see there's a plastic clip, which we will take our clip removal tools. This is not the factory clip. Get that out of the way. All right, so now this is loose. We'll be able to kind of push it out of the way as we're coming up with the bed, or at least hopefully. Well, now let's get under the bed. Now we're gonna start here under the back, and mainly because, guys, I've got a ton of air in the airbags to bring this up. I think we're gonna have to relieve the pressure in them to get it to go down, but it makes it easier for me to roll underneath. So that's why we're doing it this way. So here's the deal. You should have 8 bolts that hold your bed on. You can see one of them right there. See at the bottom of the frame there where there's an opening? See that right there? Right above that is a bolt. And so generally you're gonna have, there's another one right there. There's always an opening below it. Okay, so there's 2 back here, and I say back here, behind the axle on this side. Same thing on the other side here. We need to get those out. And then there's 2 in front, and I'll roll you up there and show you that here in a minute, but you can see all the stuff that I have zip tied to the bed. That airline, we need to get that zip tie cut. I've got a couple back here that are gonna need to be cut also, and we may actually have to take the line loose. I'm not really sure, but this right here, the bottom one, so the bottom one here and the top one, you guys saw that in a recent video when we did the tail lights. We need to push that clip in and unplug those, remembering the black one goes in the bottom and the gray one in the top, which that isn't a huge deal. Look, guys, you can always look at your tail lights if they're not working the correct way. You can plug the opposite one in, but the rest of the stuff we should be good, right? So there's really not a lot of stuff to get out of place if you don't have the airbags like I do. All of this line, this wire loom that you see on either side is connected to the actual frame. So it's generally not connected to the bed, but you'll be able to notice that as we lift it up. But I'm gonna get those loose. Those should be 18 millimeters. We'll get all 4 of the back ones here loose, and then we'll roll to the front. Now that we have all 4 of the back ones out, so the 2 on this side, the 2 on the other side, I showed you behind the axle, we need to go in front of the axle. So I'm not going to show you the other side because it's the exact same, but right underneath where we fill, there's going to be 2 more. And so you guys can see one of them right there. And the second one is kind of tied up with the leaf spring. You can see the mount right there. So I'm gonna use my impact to get those, the next 4 out, so the 2 on this side and the 2 on the other side. And that should be all we have hooked up, and then we'll move up top and see how we're gonna winch this bed off here. Ultimately, once you get all the bolts out, you should be able to come over to the side and lift it up, which you can, and you should be able to do that on both sides. So what I'm gonna be trying to use here, guys, is my cherry picker. Now, will it get high enough? I'm not really sure. And it's not the best method, but here's the problem. My lift, my 4-post lift, I was thinking about like going under it, lifting the bed off and then driving it out. The problem with that is my bed, the lift doesn't go high enough. And so I think I can get it a little bit higher with this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some straps, some ratchet straps, and I'm gonna go from each corner to the center of this. Now, will it work? Probably be a little bit, dicier than I would like for it to be, but we're gonna give it a shot. And so I've got some extra ratchet straps over there. So let's go grab those, ratchet strap this up, and I'll show you what I'm kind of thinking. So apparently my camera wasn't filming, but here's what we've got accomplished. So you can see we've hooked in all the sides. I've ran them all up to the middle, kind of got them all tied together. Guys, it's not my favorite method, believe me. I'd rather have, there's a jig that sets under the rails of the beds to do this, but being that this truck's paint isn't like stellar, the lift would have been better if it went high enough, but we're already higher than the lift would have went. So I'm gonna deal with what we've got. So here's a couple things to take into account when you're lifting it up. Make sure no wires are dragging. You can see we got nothing hooked up. These are our tail lights that we had. And then the clearance, make sure you don't have any issues or nothing's hooked up to the gas spout itself. So at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to continue to lift it just a little bit. And then I'm gonna get it to the point where we clear the tire with the bed. So you can see we're kind of crooked, but I don't wanna mess with what I've got hooked right now. But I'm gonna let the air out of the suspension. That'll get it a little lower. And then I'm hoping, guys, that we can drive out from under it. That's the goal anyway. So I've got it high enough where when I tilt it, well, I'll probably have to go a couple more pumps, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have him drive out from under it, and then we should be out of the way. All right, he drove out from under it. There's a couple things I wanna do while I'm under here. For one, we're gonna get the vacuum and give this a good cleaning, because this is what we're gonna have to, this little ring is what we're gonna have to knock off. And I don't want all that junk going into the tank. So I'm gonna go grab my brush, my detail brush, and my vacuum. I'm gonna clean that up, because guys, you do not want that junk falling in your tank. And then we'll grab a hammer and probably a screwdriver. You're supposed to do this with a brass, I think it's a brass hammer, because if sparks, you don't want to create any sparks. But what we're gonna have to do is this snap ring around the outside, we have to move that. That gets it loose. Of course, we're gonna have to unhook all the connections. In fact, a guy can go ahead and do that. Oh, this one's got a lock in it. We'll have to slide the lock out. But these here, we'll probably have to use a fuel line disconnect tool. This one maybe not so much, but yeah, it's not too bad. Now, like I said, this one has a lock in it, so let's slide that lock back. Maybe, there we go. A pick or just a small flat blade screwdriver, be careful. I'm gonna push that, I don't know if you guys can see that little pin there. And it's a good idea to have the battery unhooked. I completely forgot to tell you guys that. Got it vacuumed pretty good here. We'll get that out of the way. So now we've got a couple of these guys, which you can see they have some keepers on them. And sometimes, guys, you can get lucky and they'll pry up. Sometimes you don't. This one, however, I think is just a push connection. I'm gonna have to get my flashlight in here and take a look at these. I wanted to show you, once I push these two little plastic tabs back, that line pulled right off. I want to show you the best way I've found so far. If you pinch those two, there's two little ears on the bottom, red. You've got a set of bent needle nose pliers. Once we do that, I think we can get this clip out. You can see that it popped up, or at least get it loose. And then once it's loose, at least through the locks, I think this will slide right off, and it does. So we'll do the same thing on this one. There's two little blue ears on the bottom, and when you pinch those together, this lock lifts up. The next thing we need to do is we need to get something, which, like I said, guys, you're supposed to use brass here so it doesn't spark. So don't follow my instructions. I'm going to use a flat blade screwdriver, and sometimes you got to catch a couple of these corners, but we need to swing this thing counterclockwise, right? Because clockwise locks it, counterclockwise unlocks it. This ring, this locking ring, is what holds everything down and snug in the tank. So let's pop it loose. I did pull that line off. There's a little bit of gas leak right there, but I may let that actually dry out. But then I'm gonna pop this with a hammer all the way around, getting it loose, and I'll kind of show you guys. I don't have a good place to put my tripod to show you while I'm doing it, but hit here, and then maybe on the other side, and just work your way back and forth, because a lot of times you'll have to hit a couple different areas to get it started. It actually only took me 2 or 3 hits to get that. However, I'm not happy with the amount of dirt that fell out of it, so I'm gonna go ahead, grab my vacuum again before we get this loose, and pull that out, and see if we can vacuum some of that junk up so it doesn't all fall in the tank. I actually got a spot where my tripod may hang out. So we've got it obviously loose. So now we need to drag this pump out of here. And I'm gonna try to, I don't wanna kink any lines or anything crazy. Let's pull the snap ring off and set it over here for now. Trying to keep it, it goes different ways, so that's not a huge deal. Now let's see if we can get this old guy out. You know what, I don't even see the sending unit on it, guys. Oh, okay, there it is. I'm gonna say, like, that could be our problem. There it is. And you're gonna wanna be real careful with the new one, obviously, because this is, I believe, what's broke. Set this outside. All right, got that outside. And I really, guys, I really don't want to mess with cleaning this area, but what I may do is just try to wipe out this ridge, try to not get any of that crap in the tank, if that makes sense. Because it comes, I bought a GM fuel pump, and I'll list it in the description down below. The new GM fuel pump does come with a new seal. And for some reason, guys, they're different for, I'll tell you, I'm gonna get my vacuum, because there's just some crusty areas I wanna vacuum off there. Now we've got that cleaned off. I've got my brand new GM unit here. And so what I'm gonna do is carefully put this guy here. You could technically put it on and then try to reel all that stuff too. I guess I've probably done the smarter way, but I didn't wanna knock any more dirt loose that I didn't have to. All right, now here's the tricky part. Being very, very careful with that. More careful than what I'm being, I guess. Let's try to get this thing in here. I noticed there's kind of a clearance issue with that. And now that we're down, let's get our little green seal in. It's in there. Okay. And it's kind of spring loaded, so you'll notice that you kind of got to put a little pressure on it to get it down in there. But once we've got it in there, make sure we got everything out of the way. It's a little bit different area. Oh, there we go. I was gonna say it's facing a little bit different direction than the other one, but there's a little tab right here that has to line up. So I'm gonna go ahead just to keep, oh, no, I can't do that. Let's get our ring on, then I can do that. Okay. Now we'll push it back down into its opening. shouldn't have plugged it in yet. Has to swing past that lock. All right, well, either way, I'm gonna get my ring started here. All right, got a good start on it. Let's go ahead and tap it over a little. And like I said, you may have to go from different angles just depending on what you got. I like to run it right back to where it was. Okay, now I guess we'll unhook that again, push this all the way on and then down. That was dumb of me. Put this guy on, which I believe is the evap. And then, like I said, I'm gonna have to undo this one. But at this point, guys, all we have to do is plug our plugs back in, and I'm gonna give it a test. I'm gonna plug the battery back in and give it a test before we put the bed back on. Got everything done here, other than putting this little lock in. Don't forget to do that. Sure sucked to forget something little like that and then have to pull this all apart just to put a lock in. Or, I mean, chances are it probably wouldn't sneak out, but double check, pull on your lines, make sure they're good. And let's, I'll grab you off the tripod and we'll see if it fixed our issue, because it said low fuel when I pulled it in here and it has over half a tank. Let's see what happens. It may take a second to start, guys. Well, the fuel pump works. I don't know, the only way to tell may be to go actually get gas. Let's go through the trip odometer and see, because it's showing that and maybe it had less gas than what I thought. Haven't put gas in it in a while. 63 miles of range, 64. Maybe it takes a second here to read. 66. 67. It's coming up. But the gauge doesn't seem to be moving. I don't know if you guys can see that. There we go. Definitely coming up in fuel range though. I'm gonna go drive it and put gas in it. And see what happens. I went up to 75. But like I said, guys, when I pulled this thing in here, it was flashing low. I'm gonna let it sit here and idle for a little bit, and then like I said, I may go put some gas in it. Took it and got gas actually right up the road. Check it out. Full tank, 403 miles. How sweet is that? So it does work, because before, guys, what would happen is when I would fill up the tank, oh, the lights are on. When I would fill up the tank, or when he'd fill up the tank, what would happen is it would go to full for a second, but then it would immediately go directly to empty and say you needed fuel. Now it was immediate after a gas fill. But then as you drove, it would like go back to full or just a hair shy of full and be okay for like maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 miles, and then it'd go back to empty. So it was definitely the sending unit. So we've got that fixed, guys. There's one other thing I want to do, and you guys know how I am about being picky. And it's just killing me to not blast this frame and paint it with some like POR 15, but I'm not going to. I'm not even going to clean off the cab, which I'm sure that you guys are just like, I can't believe that. But ultimately, guys, if we decide to get real crazy with this thing down the road, we may do that. I really wish I had a bumper right now because it would be an awesome time to put that thing in, but I don't. But the other thing I wanted to do, I went ahead and took the heat shield off of the muffler because it was rattling really, really bad. The other heat shield I want to take off, though, is here on the bottom of the bed. And you can see that it's bent and it's actually loose in a couple spots and it's rattling really, really bad. So I may have a little bit of a fight on my hands. If I remember correctly, on my green truck, I fought this and did this with the bed on. But I'm gonna try to do it now that I've got the bed suspended. I've got a couple of my screw jacks under just to give me a little more good feeling about being under it, I guess. And I've got the truck kind of partially under it, so if it did fall, it would hopefully fall on the truck and the stands and not hit me in the head. So I'm gonna take these out real quick. They're just Torx. Like I said, they're generally pretty rusty though, so we'll give it a shot. If we can't get them out, we may end up trimming it. I don't know, we'll see. Well, after snapping 2 of my T25s off, I decided this is gonna stay. Now look, I could probably use a cutoff wheel and get above it and cut it off, but guys, it's not, I moved it around a little bit to get it to keep from rattling, so hopefully that'll fix our issue. But yeah, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time cutting that off. It's not that important. If it still rattles, then we may do that later. I can access a majority of that from the bottom of the truck. So, you know, if it becomes super annoying, but I think a majority of our rattle was on the heat shield that was on the muffler. So I think we're gonna see. I may wish I'd have cut this off, but look, there's 2, 4, 6, there's 8 of these things. And I just don't think I wanna cut right now. It's really hot out here and I hate cutting when it's hot. So with his help, got the bed set back in place, or at least really, really close to in place. And guys, it actually went down a little better. If you have 2 people, this is just a lifting point. So while you're lifting, if you have somebody to balance it like what I had, that makes life way easier on you. Now it's really close back here because the bumper is pushed in, but anyway, you kind of get the idea. One other thing I didn't talk about is make sure that when you're putting this bed back on, you keep in mind that this guy is still, you know, dangling around down there. So make sure that you get it started and don't push it down with the bed. When I first started coming down with the bed, I should have set you guys up on the tripod to show you, but it was starting to fold over. You need to make sure you sneak it up in that cavity where it goes. We can go ahead and get our T30s back in and our plastic plug in the bottom. Now, one other thing you may notice when you're putting your bolts back in is how square is my bed, right? So a lot of times when you're putting it back on, it's not 100% square. So if you're having trouble starting your bolts, what I suggest is, and man, mine are pretty square, but you can put a flat blade screwdriver or an awl in the hole and then kind of move the bed back and forth as needed. Now it does have a centering piece up here. Well, most of them do. See how square mine are? I just got lucky. A lot of times it's over a little bit. So another thing I do is I go through and thread all the bolts in before I start to tighten anything. You don't want to tighten this side down and then realize, crap, I've got it really crooked and this back one's not fitting. So go through and put all your bolts in first. Now, aside from putting the tailgate on, guys, remember not to forget to plug in your taillights. Black on the bottom, gray on the top. And I did zip tie my lines, my airbag lines back up as well, but I've got all the bolts tight, and I'm sure, guys, there is a torque spec for those bolts. And look at that, I smashed that line. I'm gonna have to loosen that one up. I smashed that airbag line. That's not gonna work. Let me loosen that one back up and pull that airbag line out from under it. Well, at this point, guys, we've got it pulled out. We are completely set, and not honestly a terrible project. I know that some people like to drop the tank. You know, the problem with the tank method, guys, especially if you're in this situation, not knowing how much gas is in it, man, those things are ridiculously heavy when they have a ton of gas in them. And to be quite honest with you, what was it, 8 bolts, the 2 T30s in the tank, or the opening as far as the filler cap, and then 1 little plug, 2 plugs in the back for the tail lights, and then you just lift the bed off. If you have 4 buddies, you can lift the bed off and just set it to the side. Sometimes, you know, I was just working with me and my son out here. So either way, got what we needed to accomplished, and it's kind of exciting to know how much gas is in it now instead of guessing. Now, we didn't go we would probably fill it up every 5 or so days, just depending on how much it was driven. But now you can at least tell how much gas is in it. And like I said, guys, replacing the pump at the same time just made more sense. That was obviously the factory pump, and it was probably well due for a change. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. I've been trying to cut out, you know, when I'm actually doing stuff. Let me know in the comments if you want to like see me get maybe a different way to mount my camera so you can actually watch me do this stuff. I just felt like, you know, I'm trying to tell you guys as I go, as opposed to like boring you with watching me do it. But if you want to see that process, let me know. I used to do that in my older videos, but it seems like the more I've gone as far as time wise in YouTube, the less I will actually show the work being done. Somebody mentioned that in the comments a while back. So let me know if you guys want to see a little bit of a change up on that. But if you did enjoy this video, please, like always, smash that thumbs up button. Guys, if you are not subscribed, go down there, hit that subscribe button. Of course, like always, ring that bell notification that notifies you every single time we drop a new video, and stay tuned to see what we work on next.